Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Oh, need that. You might think, what's old Fruit Loops up to now? And you get 10 useless Roger points if you know where the expression Fruit Loops comes from relative to an individual. And you get 50 Roger points if you can give me the exact circumstances as to how it occurred. But anyway, I'm Fruit Loops today. This is my Dendrobium loddigesii, however you like, soft G I think, and this is part experiment, part propagation and part rescue, all in one. So what we've got here is old canes with Keikis growing, many of which are far too far from the mount to ever take root. Some of them are coming on nicely. Yeah, some of them are not. Yeah, I see no point in leaving these probably to shrivel. Yeah, so what we're going to do is take some off, some good ones. There's a nice one there, so that one's coming off. And for now, they're going in a jug of water to have a flipping good soak to make sure they're fully hydrated. Because obviously once they're separated, they're going to lose their connection to the mother plant. Some of these are tiny. As I said, this is part experiment going on here. Now that one might actually come off on its own without cutting the cane. Yep, so that's a nice little one. But some of them are too small. Okay, I could leave them, but I think some of these are struggling to hang on, probably with the heat we're getting. And with that heat, obviously, there's a shortage of humidity. There's a nice little one there that can come off. Now this big one up here, this one that looks really good, is actually just hanging off the very end of the cane. It looks like the cane's extended, but in actual fact, it's nothing more than a normal Keiki. So we'll have that one off. What else have we got then? This little one here, that can come off. They pull off very easily if they're ready. There's two there. You just twist off or that sort of thing. Is that little tiny one going to come off clean? Yes. Right. What else have we got? This little group here, I'm going to take the whole cane off and plant that. Now the old part of the cane that they're attached to may well just shrivel and die, but hopefully by then they will have rooted. There's another little cane full there. We'll try that one. And another one down there. Obviously there's a limit to how many I want. Right, what does that leave me with? While I'm at it, I think I'll take some of the oldest shriveled canes off, just tidy the plant up. These are never going to do anything now, so they just will come off, leaving a better looking plant. See, these Keikis here, they've rooted into the main mount. So have these here, and so of this group here. Look at the difference once they've attached to the mount. Look how well they've grown on. Those are most likely to bloom next year, along with this one and this one. They're still growing. Well, that one's not, it's finished. But most of these are still growing. Actually, they're not, they've finished. See, they're not doing as well as they should do. This is the only decent cane this produced this year. That one's still growing. But the plant's sort of stalling. So this is an effort to rejuvenate it, basically. Just to leave the good stuff so that the plant puts all its effort into the good stuff and stops wasting its time with these straggly little bits like that. That doesn't mean to say they won't grow. What else have we got here? along the lines of manky stuff. Some of the older canes are going to be difficult to even think about getting off because they're actually attached. And who knows, with a little bit of a trim they may even shoot out some more Keikis. There's a manky cane there, we don't want that one. So it's just a little tidy up, just to make it look a little bit better. And then we'll see what it does. So that's all I'm doing to the mother plant. A few scrappy bits here that we don't want. And then this is like part one, because I want to leave these to have a really good soak before I attempt to mount them. So I'll be back. This is early in the day, or relatively early in the day, post breakfast but pre-lunch, and I'll be back later in the day, probably late afternoon, after these have had a good soak, really hydrated themselves. And then the canes that have been cut we'll seal with the cinnamon, just to make sure they've got dry ends to them, and then we'll try and get as many roots in as possible onto a mount, and we'll do that later in the day. So that's part one. I'll be back. Right, I'm back. We've had a long day. Irrelevant. I found a nice gnarly piece of bark. This is a very old piece of bark, and technically it's starting to break down. But when you get a piece of cork bark where the front is starting to get a bit crumbly, yeah, the back's normally okay. So that's what I'm going to use, mainly because this is the last piece of bark I've actually got. So we need to decide which way up. Actually, the which way up is going to be based on where's the easiest place to make the hole, which is there. So we'll do that first. Get that done. It's a nice thin piece there to get the wire through. Why struggle? So that's just a sharpened screwdriver followed by a cross head to make the hole bigger, just so that the wire goes through nice and easy. And remember which way round I'm going. Last time I did one on the back, I put the hook round the wrong way. We have moments, can't get it right all the time. Does it really matter that much? I'll just get the hook facing the way I want it, because this is very heavy gauge wire. It doesn't bend so easy as some of the other stuff. Just take that over the top, and I won't be able to do that with my fingers because it is the heavy gauge wire. So we just use the pliers to put a little loop round there and pinch it. It's just to stop the hook waggling. You often find if you've got a waggly hook, it's quite easy to, it waggles just as you're hanging something up, and then at that point it drops on the flipping floor because you miss. Right, that's that bit out of the way. We don't need that or that anymore. Mucky hands. Right, now I've got some moss. I won't need much, but I will need some. The whole point of doing this is to keep these little tiny pieces hydrated. Now they're not going to stay hydrated very well if they're bare rooted, are they? So they're going to go a bit heavy on the moss for now. Obviously if they do grow on well, rather a lot of the, boy is this going to be fiddly. It's just dawned on me this is fiddly. Probably not the best thing to attempt when you're tired, but we'll give it a go. Oh my god, there's loads of them. Didn't realise I had quite this many. Oh dear. Oh well, we'll do what we can. Yeah. Right, we need dry hands for a minute or two. And for once this may actually take several pieces of fishing line, because oh, that one's nice. That's a sample, not a that's not what's left. That's a sample to see if I like that one, and then if I do I might get some more. A rather larger glass will go with my tea, which is coming soon. Right, am I going to try and... It's quite a wide piece of bark, so each turn of the fishing line is going to use up a fair bit. So if you ever want to gauge roughly, you know, look at how much you need to go round once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Now that's about enough for one go, because I'll end up with a loose bit waggling around so much it'll do more harm than good, because it'll keep knocking things off as I try and turn it. So we may have to come back for more in a minute. Now the way I'm going to plant these is they're all going to be pointing upwards in their general direction of growth. Am I on the camera here? Yes, I am, just about. Let me twist it down a little bit. That's better. Otherwise you're not going to see anything, are you? So the idea is to put them quite low down and all pointing upwards, which in theory means they should extend upwards without going off the top of the mount. I don't want any near the top of the mount. I want them from sort of halfway down towards the bottom, pointing upwards. So their initial growth should follow that path. They'll probably end up doing their own thing anyway and go out sideways, but some will. But if the majority go upwards, I'll have achieved my goal, because this the way this plant grows is that a cane will extend, then it will lose its leaves, at which point it should bloom around that time, and then it will grow keikis, often towards the end of the cane, yeah? And those should try and attach to something, if they can. Well, if they go off the top of the mount, they can't, can they? So the idea is to keep them low down, and hopefully they'll grow upwards. Maybe, possibly, who knows? But we can only try, can't we? Right, so we get our first loop on. That nice and tight. Right. Now we need some moss. As I say, I don't want much, but these are not. It's not like this is an adult plant that's got to be rested in the winter. Far from it. If these want to grow on through the winter, they'll be allowed to do so in no uncertain terms, because I'll get much better plantlets next year. I mean, this is getting done halfway through the growing season, so these should push on. That's my theory anyway. They should push on, but they are going to be difficult to actually accommodate. Now, where I've got a plant with roots effectively behind it, that's what it looked like, that's going to have to get turned sideways, so a few leaves are going to get bent against the mount or against the moss. But I want the roots, see, that plant naturally looks right that way up, doesn't it? But that's pointing downwards, so it's going that way up, which means the roots are pointing upwards. Which way the roots point doesn't actually matter, but all of these keikis have got active growing roots. Now the existing part of those roots probably won't attach to anything. They'll probably carry on growing, but they won't attach. But the extensions to these roots should do. Yeah? So this is going to be fun, isn't it? We might have to, yeah, let's start near the bottom and get a turn round and get some held in place. Let's do this sensibly. I'm going to put the largest ones at the bottom. They're the ones most likely to grow. We've got a set of 3 there, roots going all over the place, and that one's going to be a nuisance. Turn it around the other way, yeah, then it'll point. The top of the cane was actually into the moss, going straight into the moss, so that's not a good idea. It's better if it doesn't do that. Right, so we've got 3 in place. Now a little bit of moss over the top, not a lot, this is just to keep these hydrated. Nothing more. I don't want them absolutely smothered. I'm going to try not to get any on the leaves, but the canes are going to get pinched to hold them in place. Not garroted, just pinched. Right, now the idea is we come round. There goes the moss. Get back on there. Could do with a slight bit more there. Moss to hold the moss in place. That's a new one. Right, now let's try and get a turn. Low down to hold the moss, a bit higher up to start holding the plants, going in between leaves where possible, and then another one over the top of the 3 canes about halfway up. Right, that's those secured, and that's already used 3 turns, yeah? And then we'll put something heavy on there to stop it coming unravelled. Now we'll try and get a few more on. Now these can go in between, and we can start getting them a bit thicker. Tuck the roots underneath existing canes, that's not a problem. It's the only thing I haven't actually done, which is a bit of a mistake, but I'm not going to worry about it, is I didn't put cinnamon on the break points. I'm not going to worry about that. Right, that's a few more. Again, a little bit of moss over the top where I can, which won't be much, because I can't get at these bits as anywhere near as easy because they are so tiny. Some of them might not even get much moss at all. Right, tuck the moss underneath the previous canes. Ugh. Dry hands. And let's see if we can go around a couple more times. This is fiddly, and it's going to be so easy to just knock things over underneath the top. I'll pull the top of that cane out in a minute. And another one just to hold those in place. This is never going to be perfect, but we'll go with it. Now I'm almost out of tie, so I'm going to tie off at that point and start a new piece for those last few. So we'll just come back and tie off, and then we'll have a new piece to carry on with. Let's see if we can get this to go under, where it's such a gnarly piece of bark I can't get my tie underneath to grab hold of anything. There we go, that's got something. Just tie that off. This is very loose, it doesn't need to be tight. Just needs to hold them in place. I'm hoping the roots will extend now, and the extension should start to attach. And obviously any new roots will. Right, piece number 1. We need to go round another 3 times, I would think. So it's 1, 2, 3, and 1 for luck, 4. We'll see how that does. I'm hoping to only need this one more piece. Ugh. Right, let's get a loop going. Fiddly little things like this are best done when you're fresh, not when you're tired. Even my eyes are tired today. Made far too much time on the computer. I got sidetracked quite badly. I started off doing my Orchid Society magazine, which was the plan. You have to have a plan, don't you? And I had one. Right, let's get on with this. And I started it, and I came up against a problem which I wasn't expecting. Something that didn't go as expected, so I had to do a bit of work to work out how to get round the problem, which took a while. Sorted that out, did a bit more, and got to the point where I thought, I've had enough, I need a break. So I went to have a look at somebody else's YouTube videos. I watched a couple, nice little break. But although I'm treating that as a break, don't forget I'm still sat at the computer, aren't I? Yeah, so I'm still looking at a screen. And when you're watching somebody else's videos, all down the side, YouTube's very kind and actually gives you some suggestions for something else to watch. I don't normally take much notice of that, but in this particular instance, one of my favourite tracks came up. In other words, a piece of music came up from a band I used to follow, well, a lot when I was a lot younger. Most of the music I like in the rock, blues sort of arena is old, because there isn't much new stuff that's produced that's worth bloody listening to, quite honestly. So anyway, I started listening to a bit of music, And then I listened to a bit more, and then I listened to a bit more, and about an hour and a half later I realised I'd used up nearly all of my time that was supposed to be a break listening to music. And I enjoyed it thoroughly. I don't listen to music very often nowadays, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But there went the time, as it does. Right, these are getting a bit closer together now, and they'll be even more difficult to get any moss on. And I can only put moss where I can put it, if you know what I mean. I don't want to bury canes if I can help it, so I'm just going for exposed roots. And some of the moss is going over the top of some of the other little pieces, which once I've got them secured, I'll get something fine like my little screwdriver and just hook the canes out from under the moss and the tie. Right, still got a couple more here. I want to try and use them all, you know. I mean, some of these are probably going to fail and not actually grow. So the more I've got there, the more chance I've got of a absolute mountful of young plants growing on. Which, if they all grow, is it's going to be quite something, quite honestly. Once you put on a good show in a couple of years' time. Right, dry hands. Now, those pieces are very close together, but then they are the smallest. Where was my last tie? I need to go round about there, I think. Everything's got to have a tie at some point on the cane. I can't leave any loose, otherwise as soon as I let go they'll be on the floor. So just trying to be delicate. I think that's got them all. So another check. Yeah, everything's got at least one tie over it, and then I'll be relying on the roots to do the rest once they get going. Right, let's tie that one off, and then we'll get round the front and tidy. Moss that's in the wrong place can be hooked off. Ties that are over the top of leaves, the leaves can try and be teased out. You won't get them all, and I don't need to get them all. If the odd leaf gets a bit of damage on it, it's not the end of the world. Hopefully there'll be plenty more growing on afterwards. Alright, so what have we got then? You don't really need to do that much. Just going over the little pieces. That's a cane with two pieces, both are sticking out. That's got two pieces sticking upwards. That top piece is sort of sat on the moss. That one might not make it, might stay too wet. This will be okay. That's back to front, but it's got clearance to grow out the top. That one down there, let's find something thin that I can use. That one down there is actually buried. I need to try and lift him out. Just get him clear, that's all. And that one. There we go. Just so that it can see the light, and then it will move towards it. Got quite a big one here that's well buried, so I'm going to have a job to get that one out. So take a bit of moss off, give him a bit of headroom. That's that one done. These are all okay. This large one here, that's got clearance. That bit of moss will have to stay because that's for the one above, not the one below. This one's okay, is he? Yep, he's clear. He's clear. I think that'll do. So that is quite compact. There's a lot of little plantlets there. Some are a reasonable size. Those should grow on at quite a rapid rate because they've already got some strength in them. And all of these little ones will probably now stall for a little while, but they've all got roots. So they're all capable of hydrating. They should be. I think that, I'll say that moss missed the tie completely. See if I can just tuck it in under those roots. The roots will hold it in place. And there we go. Just get that bit done. Right, so that's it. Dendrobium loddigesii. Rejuvenated bits. Now, most of those bits would not have probably survived on the mother plant because they were too far away from the mount for the roots to attach, and there would be periods where those roots would just dry out completely. Despite having reasonable humidity in the grow room, there's a limit to how much humid air can do. And obviously I don't want everything dripping wet when it goes into night time, so I don't like my humidity getting too high, even though I've got some plants out there that would love it, like the Restrepias and Masdevallias and the like, but they have to lump it down near the 70–75%, which is where I try and hold it. Overnight it goes right up into the 90s, and there's nothing I can do about that this time of year because there's so much moisture in there during the day, which is the important bit. That's when the heat's there. Anyway, we'll see how they grow. I'm sure somebody's going to put a comment in there, can we have updates please? Well, you'll get them as and when something dramatic is changing. You know, when we've got a couple of inches growth on some of those tiny little ones or something, we'll have another look and see how they're doing. I personally don't expect the whole lot to survive, but I think most of them will. So yeah, bit of an experiment. I don't normally take a piece of a cane off with Keikis attached. I normally take the whole Keiki off like I did with some of them. But it is a good way of propagating. Not all orchids produce Keikis. It is mainly the Dendrobiums, and not all of them do, you know. So, but if you're lucky enough to get one that does produce Keikis, you've got a way of producing new plants. Freebies. We like those. Anyway, see you next time. Bye for now.